girls, grab your beers.
Hey everybody, this is Charlie from Anthrax, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Violent Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now here's your host.
I am Monty Heath, so one Heath, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
Hey, what's up? It's John from Skillet, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle on Domain Cleveland Radio.
Fasten your seatbelts.
What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And real quick housekeeping note, if you're watching us on YouTube or the Rumble channel or BitChute, please hit that follow and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, all that stuff, please hit that follow and subscribe button. Help us bring up our numbers to continue to bring you conversations like the one I'm about to have right now with Mr. Vinnie Dombroski. How you doing?
Not so bad, Bill. Just running around like a madman. I got to get on the Zoom call at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So I was like running around I was actually speeding in my big white van to make this meeting. So.
Oh, nice. There wasn't a white Bronco or nothing, though. Were they police escorts?
Nah, man. It's a big.
Where are you at right now?
Just outside Detroit, just north of 8 Mile.
Okay. That's what I figured, because it's freaking bitter cold up there right now too, ain't it?
Oh, it's awful. Yeah, where are you from? Cleveland?
Yeah, I'm in Cleveland. So just talk. My buddy Rich lives up that way, and I guess he said it was like 6 degrees. We're at like 13 degrees here right now.
Yeah, man. You know, my experience being in Cleveland is the wind right off the lake can be just brutal sometimes. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. So usually when I have somebody on for the first time, I like to get a quick background before we get into current events. So do you remember what you originally wanted to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I think, when I was just a kid, I was like, maybe I'll be a priest. I'm not even sure why that was. We went to a church when we were kids, like real young. My dad never went, but my mom would like to go. So yeah, for some reason, but then I just don't know how rock and roll happened beyond that. But certainly when I was a young kid, that was the idea. Then immediately a musician for some reason.
Yeah. So, but you don't remember what was it that transitioned you into music then?
The love of loud stuff. I had this discussion with some fireman buddies of mine who still work in Detroit, and we lived right down the street from a fire station that had this giant civil defense horn that was powered by a giant diesel motor that was on top of the firehouse. And when they would rev that up first Saturday of the month at 1 p.m., you couldn't scream loud enough and hear, or your buddy would hear you, because this siren was so loud. Those civil defense sirens, obviously, back in the day, for anybody that remembers that kind of stuff, I grew up in the 60s when there was we used to have those air raid drills, you'd have to go sit in the hall. So I think the Cuban Missile Crisis was still on some folks' minds, and imminent doom from nuclear weapons was still on people's minds in the 60s. So that civil defense siren was always around to warn you of incoming, attack and or tornadoes.
Yeah, we still got the city I live in, the suburb right outside of Cleveland. We still do ours every Saturday at noon. They run a test sound of it. So it's like you kind of grow used to it. So hopefully nothing ever goes down Saturday at noon, it would be like, it's just the regular, alarm.
Yeah, man. Yep.
But so then loud things. And then do you remember if there are any particular bands that caught you that was like, this is something I want to do?
My dad, he played in clubs. My dad also taught guitar. He played bass and guitar, but he was interested in exposing us to some music. So he took us to the Count Basie Orchestra was playing at a mall just outside Detroit, the Eastland Mall. And again, the volume of that band, and people would think, well, it's a big band, you know, how could that be that loud? It's not big guitars and large PA, but the band was so powerful. It was very interesting to me. So once again, the loud volume. For some reason, I just like loud stuff. I'm paying for it these days. My hearing is awful. So,
And then as you were getting older, like in high school, when did you start like knowing that you wanted to be a performer as well? And
well before high school, we were writing our own songs. Probably 12 years old, we were getting together to play music, and none of us were really good at covering other people's songs. And I think that also the rationale was that the big super groups, they didn't play other people's music, so why should we? So early on, we were writing our own songs. I can, as early as 12, remember writing a song. So well before high school, I was really interested in playing music and being in a band.
And then what kind of attracted you to vocals?
Sheer necessity. I mean, I like to write. So my first instrument that I really worked at was drums. But there was always a guitar around the house. So I would play guitar and drums, and I enjoyed writing. So being in some early bands, playing drums, I was active writing. And if the singer quit a band or wasn't around, I would jump in and sing on the demos. So, you know, going to the studio to demo out music, singing those songs, it just eventually seemed to stick to where let's just find a drummer now, and I'll jump up front.
Nice.
You know, Steven Tyler, from what I understood, played drums, jumped up front. Jimmy Marino's one of the greatest all-time drummers and singers. He kind of did both. So there's just been, of course, Dave Grohl, but I mean, there's been, over the years, lots of drummers that have jumped up front to do the frontman thing.
And then like, what was like the music scene like there in Detroit when you were growing up?
It was really kick ass. I mean, honest, you could go into clubs and play your own music. There were certainly a lot of rock clubs that would ask you to play cover songs, and those places tended not to be very interesting to me, other than going in and hanging around and drinking and meeting people. That was always kind of cool. But there were always clubs that you could go to and play all your own music and start to develop a following, which is not very common. When you're a young musician, you get out and you travel and play other states and other cities, you eventually see that not everybody wants to have original music played in their clubs.
Gotcha. And then when so your band gets started, like what was one of your earliest bands? Because you've been in quite a few. I was reading so many to name, but I mean, obviously, you know, one of the biggest being Sponge, but what was one of your first ones from that time?
The first one was probably a duo back in my old neighborhood in Detroit. My neighbor Lee and myself, he played guitar and I played drums. So, and he did some singing too. But yeah, it was a duo called Krypton, and
nice.
Yeah, it was kind of heavy and really loud, and there was definitely some double bass going on. So that was in the 70s, you know. So yeah, that was probably the first official band. We would go out and play a local bar once in a while, and maybe like a local festival. Yeah, it was just fun. just to get up there and on your amplifier that you picked out of the trash and your giant speaker cabinet that you made at home and your drum set that you cobbled together. It was pretty cool, you know.
Nice. And then time goes on, you're playing, you're getting your name out there in the music scene. When did like Sponge become a project for you?
Well, the Sponge thing happened out of a band called Loud House, and Loud House was signed to Virgin Records. I think the first and only album that we released with Virgin was like a 1991 release, from what I recall. And we were working on a second record. The band released that record. The band got dropped from Virgin. We started working on a second record, recording the second record, and the singer from Loud House quit the band. So we found, without a singer, like, we got to find somebody to just sing. And we did some auditions, asked some folks to send in their pictures and whatnot. And, these guys would send in pictures like it was their beauty shot from Olin Mills, when you go to get pictures taken with your whole family and stuff like that. And we're just like, we're a rock band, for God's sakes. Or, some guys would look like nothing. I'm not bagging on newscasters, but they'd look like a newscaster or something. Like, this is not a rock band dude, So anyway, I was like, let's just keep writing and recording, which we did. And we'll look for a singer at the same time. The singer never happened. And like I said, I would sing on the demos. And I'm like, let's find a drummer and let's start going out to play some gigs. So from the demise of Loud House came the Sponge Band. And we didn't want to continue as Loud House with me singing. That had been dumb, because the old singer from Loud House, he was really cool and he really made his mark in that band. So I didn't want to compete with that.
But basically you had everybody from Loud House was Sponge except for the singer switch, and then the new drummer. Yeah,
we got Jimmy Paluzzi to play drums, who went on to play drums with a band called Horse. He had a really great band called The Fags. He still plays drums in a band that we've had for about 22 years called the Orbitsons, which is kind of like an outlaw country band. We do that band to this day. So yeah, Jimmy was the initial drummer for the Sponge project, and then Jimmy wasn't in the band. We got Charlie Grover to play drums. So we've gone through a number of drummers. Billy Adams had played drums with us for a long time. The most recent drummer is Dave Coughlin. He's with us. So yeah, we're going through a couple of drummers.
Nice. And then so you step up, you start singing, change the name to Sponge. And then was it like immediate that you guys gained that radio success?
Well, I mean, I suppose people will look at it like it was just an overnight success. We just started doing a lot of gigs, doing every gig we could play and recording music. So we managed to hang on to some production company contacts from the old Loud House band, as well as management. So by the time we were ready to start bringing in some labels, we were out playing a lot of gigs, and I think we were ready for it. It might seem like it just happened overnight, but I guess what is there a saying, like, people don't understand that overnight sensations take years and years and years to develop, and I look at it like that took years to develop to get where we were with Sponge by the time 1993 happened.
Yeah, you guys were definitely road dogs, because I remember, even after the success in the 90s and stuff, seeing Sponge like at Peabody's quite a bit here in Cleveland. You guys would come through and definitely hit the road quite a bit. And
Peabody's
Cleveland area seemed to be one of your, regular spots to hit.
Oh, without a doubt. I think Cleveland was playing PLOWED on a regular basis before Detroit ever played PLOWED on a regular basis. So Cleveland radio was ENZ and MMS, I think, back in the day, that were just banging the shit out of our music. And Cleveland radio was responsible, I believe, for many other stations around the country getting on board with Sponge. Early on, there was some love at radio in Detroit. Screamin' Scott, a DJ at the Riff, and he's still in the radio business, thank God, was playing Nina Menashe, which I guess officially was the first single that we dropped off of the first record. We made a video for that, and that did get a little radio airplay. But yeah, Cleveland was such a strong market for us. And years after that, yeah, we would go to the old Peabody's, and Dan Call, I think, was the promoter over there, and he booked a lot of shows. And there was a Peabody's was Peabody's in the Flats as well?
Yeah.
That was like the first Peabody's, and then Peabody's moved. But everybody who was, in any band touring back then, from what I recall, went to Peabody's in the Flats to play.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was like a second home to me. And that's how I got exposed to so much good music. And like you said, Cleveland radio PLOWED was a banger, man. It was one of my hits. And I'd go on and butcher it and karaoke nights and stuff. But, always been one of my favorites. And I wanted to ask you really quick too about the song Molly that came out on that album as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Like what's the story that was like being told? Because you watch the music video, go back and watch the music video today. It's like there seems to be like some story being told there. Do you recall what was the song you wrote different from what the director's vision was? I guess
the video, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of directors that make videos, what they do a lot of times with the bands, they're like, you can participate in your video, and your level of participation is just looking at the shots of the models for the video. That's not like what I necessarily ever wanted to do, but that was like in the early days of the group. And of course we certainly participated in video treatments, but it just has to do with in the video this runaway gal, from what I recall, looked like she was running away, and there was some older dude or some kind of creepy dude, a creeper dude or something like that, which is just seems kind of creepy. But certainly the idea of the song is just, you're way too young to be getting involved in the kind of shit you're getting involved in, which is like partying, booze, and life at too much of an early age. And that is it with that song. That's like a peep shot into just underage mayhem.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, when that song came out, of course, I was still a young bachelor running around just fresh out the Navy. But, now I go back and listen to it, and, I'm a father of daughters. So it's like, you get a different vibe from it and stuff. But I mean, Molly and PLOWED are still two of my favorite go-tos in the catalog for sure.
Cool, man.
But, you've been a very busy man in music. I was checking out like some of the other projects that you did now. From Sponge, before we get to present, like what's some of the other stuff you've been involved with?
There was a group called Crud that I just used to have so much fun with the music, the creating of that music. Tim Padlin, who plays bass in Sponge, currently has produced many of our records, was my partner in crime with the Crud music. And that music, a lot of folks didn't know about that band. It was signed to a small indie label for a minute, one of our records was, and they probably would recognize the songs, though, because much of the music was used as backing tracks for a ton of stuff that MTV was doing throughout the early 2000s. Like, it was just used constantly for music placements, movie trailers, and TV shows, the crime scenes, like the CSI shows. It was just amazing to me, the amount of play that music would get. And it's, for lack of better words, an industrial thing. But again, I think people would recognize the songs, but not necessarily know the band, which is fine with me, because I just go, we got a lot of traction out of that. It was a lot of fun. And I think I mentioned the Orbison Band. I still do that, which is an outlaw country thing. And a lot of folks thought that the second Sponge record, Wax Ecstatic, was kind of like this goth country album. I had a chance to talk to Shooter Jennings a couple years back, and he even mentioned that to me. He's like, man, that record was like a goth country record. And I'm like, yeah, we touched on some country stuff on that. So, and then, of course, Spies for Darwin, which was the group with Sean Kinney, Mike Inez, and Chris DeGarmo.
Yeah, that was the one I wanted to ask about too. Like, what that project was like, working with those guys.
Yeah, that was very cool. Put out like a 8-song EP. I can't remember how many songs, but we'd like to do a full record sometime with the fellas. Obviously, Alice in Chains has been back up, been doing plenty of. They put out a new record, but plenty of touring. They've been busy, and it would be great to kind of revisit that at some point in the near future. So we'll see what happens with that. And of course, even moving forward. So today, the Lucid project, I'm trying to think, have I forgotten anything else? I hope I haven't, but fast forward all the way to the Lucid thing today.
Yeah, and how did the Lucid thing come together for you? How did you connect with Mr. Ellefson?
Well, it was an initial email through Drew Fortier, the guitar player in the band, and Drew has played guitar with Bang Tango, and they were interested in taking some of the songs, I think, that were maybe for a movie project, and perhaps they didn't use those songs. They sent some of those demos to me in hopes of maybe completing some stuff and me writing some stuff with them. And it started out just that simple. I really didn't know who was in the band at the time. I just got this weird email through the Sponge website, which I never look at those emails through the Sponge website, and lo and behold, find out who's in the group. Mike Heller, just an incredible talent. All the guys, just fantastic talents, and started writing vocals, lyrics, melodies, boom, and then we got that whole new record happening along with another EP.
Yeah, and let's talk about the new record, because some little bit of something that probably people weren't expecting with you guys is your collaboration with Violent J from Insane Clown Posse.
Yeah.
And a couple tracks. Like, how did that come together? I mean, the Detroit connection, I take it.
Well, over the years, ICP, they've done many things. They've done radio shows, wrestling matches. They do all kinds of stuff. And years ago, I was on talking with the fellas on their radio broadcast, which was always really cool. I look back at the days of witnessing the explosion of ICP. Sponge rehearsed in a rehearsal space behind a bowling alley that was a nightclub, and also next to the collision shop, which was in the same complex. So we would go to either rehearsal, or we would be getting our gear packed up to go play a gig someplace. And ICP in the early days would be playing a place called the Ritz, which was on Gratiot and Frazo in Roseville, Michigan. A lot of bands would come through there, metal bands, rock bands, but ICP would play there, and you'd see 1,200 kids, dressed up in the makeup, lined up outside. This is in the early days, and also that's when people used to go to clubs. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the fellas would have 1,200 kids lined up to see their band, which I think is just fantastic. So back in like 1991, 92, something like that, this stuff was going on, and I've from afar always been big fans because of their do-it-yourself attitude. I think they've just been geniuses at it. We knew that they were signed on Hollywood Records, I think, for a minute, but got dropped, but just took their careers into their own hands and just have since crushed it. So, again, I've been a big fan from afar. And, and then I sang on a song on their, what's it called? Yum Yum, not the brand new one, but Yum Yum's, I'll think of the last word, but there's a cover of Heart and Soul by Tapao that Violent J asked me to sing on. And he rewrote all the verse lyrics, and I rewrote the chorus. And the melody for the chorus is pretty close. And but yeah, I'm on that new record, or close to new record.
Okay, so you've had a history of working relationship with them, and then was it your pitch to bring over to work with Lucid?
Yeah, because I'm just, the guys have been pretty open to do whatever, which is great. I go, they're not telling me what to sing necessarily. They might tell me like to, take different vocal passes at stuff, but as far as like the approach of the song and whatnot, they've always been pretty open about everything. So mentioning about Violent J perhaps coming in to sing was a pretty cool thing. They were way into it. So yeah, it's like there's 2 major tracks that he's been on, and we've even tossed him a 3rd one here recently, 3rd and 4th one. So we'll see, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I wanted to
He's
ask.
great. I mean, he's great. His stuff is so convincing and so good. I gotta just jump in and say that he is just so great.
Yeah, and they're another group that I would see a lot here in Cleveland that had a huge following here in Cleveland as well. It seemed like Detroit and Cleveland seemed to like to share a lot of talent.
Oh my God. Yeah, I've always loved Cleveland, man. I mean, I think Cleveland has been fantastic and always great bands at the shows we played, just killer. Yeah, nothing but good vibes about Cleveland.
And then I wanted to ask though about, you had the two songs that what was Saddle Up and Ride, and then Sweet Tooth.
Sweet Tooth,
yeah, with Violent J. But now you guys also did like a Faith No More reimagined cover of Epic.
But that's Sweet Tooth, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's Sweet Tooth. The thing about that is we took the same approach that Violent J and I took with the Tapao song, Heart and Soul. And basically, Violent J rewrote all the verses, and I rewrote the chorus, which some folks would go, how can you possibly do that? It's sacred ground, but it turned out, but it comes from the point of view, like in the original, it's like you want it all, but you can't have it. So Sweet Tooth is you wanted it all, and now you got it. So that, and you're still not happy. So that's kind of the whole idea about Sweet Tooth, everybody's sucking under Sweet Tooth all the time, you just want more and more of that Sweet Tooth. So I just think it turned out killer. The band track is stellar, and the vocals on top of it, I think are just awesome.
Nice. And then, so that's coming out on Spoilerhead Records.
Yeah. I think it's out.
It is out. Okay. All right. And then, the plan is to, I think you guys were originally supposed to go out on tour, and then Drew had to have surgery or whatever.
Yeah.
So, like the plan though is to eventually hit the road.
Man, I don't know. Here's the funny thing about this shit. It's like Ellison's out doing his thing, and Sponge is my day job. And I'll be quite frank with you. When we made this record, David was still in Megadeth, so there was never any talk about doing any shows. The fellas are like, well, maybe we'll go play a rock cruise once in a while. And I go, hell yeah, I'll play a rock cruise. Why not? What do I got to lose? Yeah. And then when David found himself no longer in Megadeth, After he got back up on his feet, the boys were talking about doing some shows, and it's so hard to book them, but we finally booked it, and then that thing happened with Drew, and so, you know, who knows? Maybe we'll get out there and play the Gathering with ICP in August. If we do something like that, that would be badass to me. I'm up for that, you know?
Yeah, that's usually here in Ohio too, so that'd be
Yup.
a killer. And then, so I see our little timer's on, and I could probably save us going into that other link I was talking about because we're nearing the end here. But let me ask you a couple of quick questions that I normally ask my guests that I have on. Who are 3 people who've inspired you or you can credit for making you the person you are today?
Wow. 3 people. Huh. Let me think about that. Well, I mean, I guess you always got to give credit where credit's due. You know, I shouldn't even have to think about this too much. You know, my mom, my dad, you know, they weren't necessarily active in my you know, young music life, but I don't know. I would think that, and then you know, maybe musically, my father-in-law from my first marriage. You know, he's had some influence on my country music upbringing. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then, like, who would you say are your like top 3 musical artists?
Wow. Hank Williams, Sr. I mean, I dig Jr. too, but yeah, Hank for sure, man. Not just because of Hank's genius, but how he lived too. You know, which is, you know, it's a strange thing to say, but you know, Hank was really going for it, and even having a family and a wife and all that kind of stuff. I think Hank Sr. was just a big influence on life. So, you know, other musical influences. You know, I love Billie Holiday and Frank Sinatra, and I'll throw Iggy Pop in there. There's 4.
Nice. And then, what's any organizations or causes that you support and you encourage others to check out?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I'm certainly not as together and talented to put a great production together like you have, Bill. But I do a thing called the Beer Sessions, and I've raised some money to do different things. But I think the thing that I still talk about when I still do these beer sessions here is the AFSP, which is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and everything we've been through with the pandemic and the avalanche of issues that we have in this country with opioid addiction and people that are in crisis. I talk about the AFSP quite often. So, you know, anybody that's out there, I'm talking about it's the afsp.org. That's all you got to do, afsp.org. And you go to that site and you can see what it is that they do to help people that are in crisis. And also here in Detroit, we're affiliated closely with the Pope Francis Center. People can say what they want about Pope Francis. This is basically a privately funded homeless shelter facility that helps out the homeless population in the city of Detroit. They not only feed them, clothe them, give them shelter, but they also deal with legal help, drug counseling. They give them an address, you know, to where you can get your mail. If you're applying for a job, where do you live? My address is the Pope Francis Center. So yeah, I'm affiliated with a couple different things I feel super passionate about, which is, you know, I'm glad to help raise awareness and money.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we could almost go into that other link then, talking about the mutual passion we have for stuff like that. I used to run suicide prevention benefit concerts here in Cleveland. Peabody's was the first one I had it at through Dan calling them. They helped me out with it because I lost my nephew to suicide. So it's something that I was very passionate about. Used to work with Derek Hess, the artist, on those. And then, also the recovery and opioid thing. I'm currently, approaching, God willing, 14 years sober, so it's something else I'm passionate about as well, man.
Wonderful. Yep. Wonderful.
But, and then here's one that takes people back. Well, I don't know if I have time for that one. Let me see. How about any message that you have for our military members currently serving overseas?
Wow. I think people really tend to overlook what it is, what it is to be dedicated and to sacrifice. We have so much in this country that I think people just don't understand where it came from, how it's maintained. Not to mention what it is to be dedicated and what it is to do doing without family on a regular basis is such a huge deal for any of our service members that are out there without being with their family that may be back at home. That's a tough thing. And I think that if I could say anything, thank you, first of all. Also, I wish more folks would be more appreciative of the sacrifice that our service members give out there every day that they're in service to this great country. So I just, certainly thank you.
Awesome, man. Vinny, thank you so much for, rescheduling this with me. It's an honor to, get to know you a little bit better and talk with you. And I love to do it again sometime for sure. Sounds like we got a lot more in common, and you're not too far. So, we'll be able to set something up. I'll be out your way for, speaking of ICP, the Necronomicon, their group Twisted that ICP kind of brought up and put on the map. They do like a comic/horror movie type convention up there in that area.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be coming up there for that in March or whatever. But man, I really appreciate you rescheduling with me and us being able to work through the technical difficulties and making this happen. Now, anybody that's new to the Lucid or your projects and stuff and want to know more, where would you send them?
Well, simple enough. Anybody can go, because most of this stuff is plastered all over Facebook. And so if you go to Facebook and just look up Sponge Rocks on Facebook. Yeah, Sponge Rocks. Yeah, I don't think Sponge Detroit. Sponge Rocks, yeah. On Facebook. They can find our Facebook site. And let me just double check. I just click a link all the time. But yeah, it's like going to Facebook, everything about Sponge. There's a ton of Lucid stuff on there. And people can find out easily what's going on.
Nice.
With everything that we're doing. So, yeah. Yeah, it's Sponge Rocks.
Nice.
I don't know. I thought twice about it.
And they
I
do,
just want to make
sure.
sure that's correct.
And then we got less than a minute here, but if you can, do me one last favor. You mind cutting a promo ID for the show? Just introduce yourself, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
Hi, folks. This is Vinny from the band Sponge and Lucid, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
Sweet. We made it. We made it happen, man. Okay. All on the free Zoom. Vinny, thank you so much, Boom. Man.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Hopefully I'll talk with you again soon, man.
All right, Bill. Good to talk to you.
All right. Take care. Stay warm.
I'll do my best. You too.